Hello there my Jedi and Sith friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. So tomorrow is May the 4th, Star Wars Day, and I just want to preface this video by saying that this is the calm before the storm. I suspect tomorrow we're going to have a lot to talk about, notably the last two episodes of Maul Shadow Lord. There are also huge rumours in circulation about potential trailers, but I don't want to set our expectations too high. We don't want to count our chickens before the eggs have hatched. If we do get trailers, I'm going to cover them, break them down. But today, guys, we do have something of an official update for the future of the Mandoverse, which a lot of fans have been curious about. After the Mandalorian and Grogu has come and gone, after Ahsoka Season 2, what is in store for the future of the post-Episode 6 timeline? Are they going to return to the Mandalorian TV show on Disney+? Are we jumping straight to Dave's film? Maybe more Boba? More Skeleton Crew? Something in animation? There was a recent rumor stating we're getting a Tales of Luke Skywalker show. So what's the plan? Now, ahead of the Mandalorian movie, Jon Favreau's been doing a lot of different interviews around the world, and a few days ago, if you remember, he spoke about the importance of Ahsoka's second season, how that's really going to set the tone for what's coming after it, and he did tease that the Mandoverse is not finished. In terms of Season 4, he still has scripts, but he isn't sure when and if that's ever going to come about. Well, today, my friends, a mere 2 days after Disney met with Lucasfilm to discuss the roadmap for Star Wars' future, Jon Favreau says a meeting with Dave Filoni about the future of the Mandoverse is imminent, and that's when they're going to get together and really address the question of what's next. And I reckon it's going to be a provisional kind of plan, where they have a plan A and then a plan B, based on the performance and box office of The Mandalorian and Grogu. If it ends up doing well, I'm sure they're going to plan for sequels, but if it doesn't, then it could signal they're going to take Mando back to Disney+, because even if the box office in cinemas isn't great, I have a feeling The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to do really well on the streaming service. Eventually, when it's out of cinemas, and they do a Disney Plus premiere, watch that do really good numbers. I've already seen fans say that they're not going to see it in theaters, but they will wait for it to drop on Disney Plus. I have a few friends who've said the same. It might sound crazy, but some people do prefer the small screen experience, especially with this notion out there that this movie is just a few episodes of the Disney Plus show transformed for the cinema. And who knows, the lesson Disney might take from this is that Mando is best suited for the small screen. But here's the quote. Jon Favreau says, "I don't know. I always assumed we were doing a season 4, but that didn't end up being on the menu. After the strike, after the break, we needed Star Wars back in theaters, and we explored if those characters were the right ones. I felt excited, and I had a great time doing it. But now, Starfighter is coming, and we also have Dave Filoni with great arcs of history in Ahsoka." And his choice of words here is very interesting and specific. We'll come back to it in just a moment, but then he finishes with this. "I'm busy promoting this film. Dave is still working on Ahsoka, and I'll see him when we get back together next week, back in the United States, and then we'll sit down and talk." But here's the thing, on a couple of recent separate occasions at this point, Jon Favreau has kind of implied that after The Mandalorian and Grogu, Star Wars is moving on for a bit. In this interview he mentioned Starfighter, last week he mentioned Ahsoka Season 2, and now he's handing Dave Filoni the baton, and from the sounds of things, I think he's expecting a break. He has this meeting with Dave in a few days' time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that anything is set in stone. I think The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be their biggest test. If it doesn't perform the way they're hoping, I really don't think we're seeing Din and Grogu again for a very long time. Ahsoka Season 2 is obviously very connected to the movie and the wider Mandoverse, but in terms of the characters of Din, if of course he survives, and Grogu, I can envision a scenario where they're put on ice for a good 5 or 6 years. And I don't know if you noticed, but Favreau's tone, every time he's asked about the future of these characters, is often very morose. He often talks like The Mandalorian and Grogu is his farewell. He literally said at CinemaCon that The Mandalorian and Grogu is the culmination of all of his Disney Plus work. And given his uncertainty about what's coming after this, and the fact he's working on other projects like Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, I think once the movie is out, we're approaching a period of time where his priorities are no longer with Lucasfilm. But then there's a part of me that thinks this might have been the plan up until Kathleen Kennedy stepped down. But now with Filoni in charge, the co-creator of the Mandoverse initiative, maybe there is more in store. We know they're working on a secret live-action project, so maybe they're going to discuss plans for the next stage of the Mandoverse, which might end up being very different to the first phase. Maybe they're going to integrate some animated shows, maybe Ahsoka Season 2 isn't the final season. I guess this is all part of what they're about to discuss. But in other related Mandalorian updates, my friends, do you remember that Guillermo del Toro had a cancelled Jabba the Hutt movie? He was really bummed out Lucasfilm dropped the project, but for a good while a few years ago he was working on a horror movie that centered around one of the galaxy's most prominent gangsters. Well, it turns out, some ideas from that film made it into the Mandalorian and Grogu. As we know, we're going to now Hutta, we're going to see the Hutt twins who are Jabba's cousins, and one of the main characters is Stinky, all grown up, Jabba's son Rotter. And because Jon Favreau is a self-confessed Hutt fanatic, and because Del Toro worked on a Jabba the Hutt project for a long time, and has therefore done a lot of extensive research and his homework into the Hutt species, he was brought on board as an advisor for the Mandalorian and Grogu. He's even acknowledged in the credits, and according to Favreau, Del Toro gave the creative team suggestions throughout the production process. And this is objectively awesome news. But if Del Toro was so hands-on, I just have one question. Is it possible we're getting Jabba the Hutt flashbacks? Considering there is the possibility of a young Rotter, and therefore maybe a young Anakin, and Ahsoka from the Clone Wars movie, is it possible Lucasfilm reconstructed a Jabba the Hutt model? And could some of that design be inspired by Del Toro's cancelled Star Wars film? Now we're talking about some pretty darn wild speculation, but I wouldn't put it past them. But will Jabba be practical or CG, like the Hutt twins? And speaking of end credits, my friends, just a little bit of a fun fact which you might have missed, and this concerns Maul Shadow Lord. Ewan McGregor is credited in Maul Shadow Lord Episode 8. And the reason, of course, is we see a flashback to Obi-Wan slicing Maul in half. After Maul faces the Inquisitors, he sees visions of his past. We see a young Maul with Savage Opress being taken and trained by Sidious, but we also see a flashback of Obi-Wan in The Phantom Menace, slicing Maul in half. Now what really surprised me is that they had to credit Ewan McGregor again. They don't usually do that in animated projects unless Ewan McGregor re-recorded that scream. We've heard rumours he's been around Lucasfilm in recent months. He was on set for Ahsoka Season 2. Obviously his wife plays Harrison Jula, but there are rumours he was involved in the season itself as Clone Wars era Obi-Wan for flashbacks to Mortis. And so if he's still around the Lucasfilm ecosystem, maybe for that one grunt, that exertion of strength, he re-recorded the line. But I did find it quite surprising, just a bit of a fun fact. But tomorrow, I think we're going to be talking about some other familiar characters. Can't wait for the finale, guys. Look out for my breakdown and review. Share your thoughts on all of today's updates in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.